All right, with us now, former Manhattan prosecutor Jeremy Saland, also former federal prosecutor Alyse Adamson. And Jeremy, let me just start with you, because I'm curious, after the testimony of Cassie Ventura, which in a way is the bulk of the prosecution case, what left do they have to do? What are they now trying to do with these witnesses in order to prove the sex trafficking and racketeering charges?
Force, fraud, coercion. Not just a bad, ugly guy doing terrible, horrible things. Not a sex abuse case, not a domestic assault case, but that there was this conspiracy to have this criminal enterprise, that all this different foundation of this force, fraud, and these actions on his part and these different players building it up to traffic women and men, evidently too, because you have these male prostitutes across state lines to engage in this commercial sex acts. So it's not just that he beat her. It's not just that he hit her with a skillet. It's not just that he maybe not forced her to take drugs and she maybe did engage on her own in these freak-offs, but it's building that criminal enterprise conspiracy. Much more difficult on its face.
Yeah, and we'll get to the defense, what the defense will be in a second, but at least first, continuing on the prosecution and what they're trying to do in order to prove force, fraud, and coercion. What exactly do they need to elicit from these witnesses? Dawn Richard testified on Friday that she did see an example of abuse. Diddy, she testified how Sean Combs beat Cassie Ventura, or he saw her with a skillet or whatnot. But what more besides that?
Yes, John, you're absolutely right. That is exactly what the prosecution needs to show, that it was more than a consensual relationship, as the defense tried very hard to paint during Cassie's cross-examination. They need to elicit from Dawn Richard more details about this abusive conduct, because recall, on cross, the defense kind of left the impression with the jury that maybe Sean Combs only became violent when he was coming down off of drugs. Maybe he was bipolar. But no, already Dawn Richard has kind of dispelled that by saying he got mad about not answering fast enough and then beat her with a skillet and dragged her upstairs by her hair and then threatened them both. And that is key, because agreeing to do something consensually is one thing, but Dawn Richard basically said she was afraid she was going to die if she did not do what Combs said. So all of that is very corroborative of Ventura's account, and it also goes to Combs' intent, which is key for the trafficking charge.
How will the defense, Alyse, we'll keep going with you on this, what will the defense do to counter these witnesses after they come?
Yeah, the defense is going to have to employ the classic playbook, which is to discredit and impeach this witness. So Dawn Richard had a longstanding relationship with Diddy, a professional relationship spanned over a decade. So expect them to ask questions about having seen this abusive conduct and being afraid that she's going to be killed, but continuing to work with him, asking the motivations. She has her own lawsuit, which she filed against Diddy in September, where she alleges some of this same conduct. But expect the defense to paint that as a money grab, because that would be the motivation for her to provide this testimony if it's not true.
Jeremy, how successful has the defense been so far during its cross of Cassie Ventura in planting some of the seeds that they will need going forward?
They planted some, but nothing exceptional. So if you're going to argue, for example, the timing of a particular rape and whether or not that's accurate, that's a difficult lift to do, because I think they're still established that it was against her will. Do you believe that maybe if she's off by a certain period of time that rape didn't happen? You came back and you returned to him. Was there love? You could love someone at time one and still not consent at time two. You can consent again at time three and not consent at time four. So it's a very difficult thing to do and poke the holes at her. Is it about money? Well, no, I didn't cancel my tour because of the money. I canceled my tour separately. So it's difficult. I don't know if they've done the job they needed to do with her, but I think that goes to the point that there's still a lot more to come. You're going to have text messages. You're going to have the transactional records. You're going to have other witnesses who are going to testify and bolster up Cassie Ventura. It's not just going to rise and fall solely on her shoulders.
You did express some curiosity that Cassie Ventura's mother is on this witness list.
Yeah, a lot of what she's going to likely say would be hearsay. There is an allegation that I came across involving something about the reaching out to the father by Diddy about I'm her father now, or I'm her dad now and she's my daughter, basically family set aside. I don't know whether or not the mother was privy to that call, but there's going to be a lot of hearsay in that, so I'm not sure. I don't think there's allegations that she saw the injuries as alleged, but we'll find out. But she's not really a critical witness. I think some of the other players are much more important.
And Alyse, just finally, do you think 6 weeks, the prosecution really needs 6 full weeks to lay out its case, given where it is right now?
That's a good question. And I remember thinking after this first week, wow, that's a long time. Ventura testified very early because she's 8.5 months pregnant. They had to get her on the stand. Remember, this is a RICO case. So it's not just about the sex trafficking. Prosecutors have to show that Combs was running his businesses as corrupt enterprises, which means they were organizations that were committing crimes. So I would bet that the balance of this trial is going to be corroborative of Ventura's story. They also have to bring in the other victims, the unnamed victims, but they're also going to have to lay the foundation for this RICO charge and explain how he conspired with more than one person and how he was running Bad Boy Records as a corrupt organization. So they might need that time.
Yeah, data and records often part of RICO cases. We'll see if this becomes a data-heavy case. Jeremy Solan, Alyse Adamson, thanks so much for being with us. I do appreciate it.